Tonight we welcome a master of finding opportunities. So somebody who's really worked well in not only developing a business locally, but developing a business internationally when it was necessary to do so. When times were a little bit tougher and we started to see a slowdown in the economy, his business was growing. And I think that a lot of what he has to say we can all learn from. As we all might be seeing slowdowns in our business over the last couple of years. Active locally, active overseas. I would like to welcome the president of Lea-Der Coatings, Daryl Demers.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks for coming on. So maybe just take us back to the beginning. How did you get involved with Lea-Der Coatings, and maybe tell us a little bit about Lea-Der Coatings?
Well, that goes back a long ways now. Lea-Der Coatings started back in 1994. We used to be in the old building on 90 Oswald Drive. I started with the company in 1997 as just a sales rep, developing new products in the drilling industry. My background has always been in industrial tooling for the drilling industry, so I kind of had somewhat of an idea of how a drilling rig worked. Approximately 2003, 2004, there was a lot of injuries on the drilling rigs, workers being killed on the drill floor for obvious different reasons. So I was approached by a major drilling contractor to come up with a design on making workers aware of the dangers on a drilling floor with our drill floor matting. So I went to the drawing board with a couple people from the operator, and we came up with identifying the danger zones by color of our drill floor matting, embossing the words, different colors, different zone colors. And that started about 2004. 2005, it became compulsory that every drilling rig in Canada at that time had to comply with the design that Lea-Der came up with. So just after 2005, the original owners of Lea-Der, well, 2004 actually, they went back, they moved to Saskatchewan and left the company in my hands, where I started to build and develop and move forward. And in that process and in that time, the company had to go international because a lot of the drilling contractors were going into the U.S., major Neighbors Drilling, Precision Drilling, so on and so forth. Can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry. No, I'm gonna start over. So at that point in time, the original owners were very skeptical because they've had bad advice on don't do business in the U.S. because you're just going to get sued, which was totally wrong way of thinking, because we had no choice but to go international because of our domestic market. It had to go international. So as process went on, the company was growing exponentially. It was leaps and bounds. So the opportunity came where the original owners of the company, they couldn't fathom what was happening, was out of their league. So they approached me to buy the company, which at that point in time, it was like, well, okay. So we negotiated, and since 2007, I've owned it outright. After 2007, the company really exploded into the international market. We developed our matting systems that were taken over in Southeast Asia, where we had a contract with Samsung Heavy Industries in Kojedo, outside of Seoul, Korea, where we outfitted about 30 deep water drill ships. So within a 2-year period, I made 19 trips to South Korea as advising and overseeing a lot of different projects. From that point on, the company just kept growing and growing, where we moved into a lot of different markets. Mexico, we have distributors in Mexico. Basically, we're all over the world right now. Our last real big push was in 2015 into the Middle East. President, that became a whole new, the word I'm looking for, business, totally different business, let's put it that way. What we do in North America is completely different the way they do business in the Middle East. So we grew that business to the point now where it's probably within, well, by next year, we've already been awarded some major contracts through NOV, through Algeria, which will really push us forward even again.
That's excellent. So obviously when we're looking at the Middle East, I don't think that a lot of businesses here have ever considered that as even a potential market. It just doesn't resonate with many people in our local Canadian market. Is this an opportunity that people are missing?
Potentially, yeah, it can be a market that we're missing. The biggest thing is a lot of companies say, we can do all kinds of stuff. So my biggest question to people that come along under the Lea-Der umbrella is, are you export ready, or are you ready to export? That's kind of a play on words, and a lot of people don't understand that. When you're dealing with those type of countries, the ball game changes 180 degrees. Like I said, the way you do business is completely different. The communication's different. Your times are different. Everything is different.
Wow. So the time's a little bit different. Maybe just explain a little bit more what you mean. How does the business process differ in the Middle East versus in North America?
A good example.
I'm just going to try and switch you mics here and see maybe. This one seems to be much louder. Yeah.
See, it wasn't me. See, now that's really loud. I guess if I go back to my very first trip to the Middle East, was an absolute culture shock for me. Here we're used to, we get up in the morning, we have breakfast, we have meetings, and we carry on. Everything moves at a very fast rate. When I was in the Middle East, you set a meeting up for 10 o'clock in the morning. They might show up at 11, 12. And then you sit there for 2 or 3 hours, you discuss. They love to talk politics. They love to talk religion.
North American politics, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they'd like to talk about family, like, what does your family do, and so on and so forth. And by this time, you're already 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or it could be even later, and it's like, do you want to go for lunch? Okay. So you go for lunch, and you have lunch, and you still haven't discussed anything about business or what's going on.
Sorry to interrupt you, but when you go for lunch, what about the food? What is the food like is it different from where you're?
Let's put it, I'm a picky eater. Everyone's eating. First off, I'm not a rice fan. I don't like tabbouleh. And hummus I don't mind once in a while, but not 3 times a day. I don't eat goat. I don't eat camel. I don't eat sheep. So, wouldn't be bad if you had a beer to wash it down with, but they don't have that either. So, back to your lunchtime, which if you push your head 8 to 10 hours, you should be in bed or at home or whatever. You still haven't discussed any business. Now we're getting to be 5 o'clock. And then it's like, well, let's go have up to your hotel, have a rest, and we'll pick you up for dinner at 10. So meanwhile, your body's should be having breakfast. So you go for dinner and you got a table like this, full of food, and you're eating at 10 o'clock at night. Well, my body don't do that very well. So at that point, we still have it after dinner, you get back to your hotel, we haven't discussed anything about business yet. But when you leave, be back at the office tomorrow, we'll talk about what you're here for. And so it goes on for a process, for a time. So until they're actually comfortable with you, then the business starts. If they're not comfortable, there is no business.
So for them, it's very important to build that trust with you first.
Exactly.
Before
Exactly.
they move forward with
Yeah.
any business.
Yeah.
So, what do businesses? If I'm in a business looking to do business overseas, what should I know first? What's the first steps to know if I'm going to be ready to do business overseas?
Well, I think first you need to have a product or a service to offer that they're looking for. And believe me, in the Middle East, they are looking for Canadian product, Canadian content.
Why?
I think Canadians have a higher standard. I don't want to, versus the U.S., but there's probably the obvious reasons. But Canadian product, Canadian services are first and foremost. You go to Kuwait, Canadians will come first. Oman, Canadians will come first. Saudi Arabia, Canadians will come first. Even though there's a big influx of U.S. companies, it's Canadian product. So if you have your Made in Canada sticker on that product, it will be first, if it's approved.
Where are some gaps that you see in products overseas that Canadians are missing? Are there places that we could be doing business that we're not doing it currently?
Currently, there's off the top of my head, and we've been approached, and it's completely out of Lea-Der's realm, but we do have the capability of searching it, is food. Believe it or not, Saskatchewan, 100% of their crops of lentils, peas, fava beans, stuff like that, all goes to the Middle East. So food is a huge, fresh food, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables is all imported. There's a huge demand for that. Clean water. There's also a very huge demand right now since the bombings, obviously. There's oil lakes in the Middle East that need to be cleaned up. They're now infecting a lot of their livestock, which is affecting people. So there's a huge demand right now being pushed through the governments to get this cleaned up.
So obviously food is a import that they're looking for in the Middle East right now. Obviously we know that the oil market is doing well in the Middle East. I don't think anybody questions that. What about the future of oil in Alberta? I mean, people right now are a little bit nervous. It's kind of a tension in the air around oil here. What are your thoughts of the future of Alberta oil?
Well, I think we all agree we need to get pipelines moving. There's just no question about it. Whether we go east or west, something has to happen.
Right, so we have the supply, but you need more of the transportation methods to get it out of here are lacking.
Exactly. From what I'm hearing, like I said, that's a different end of the stick that I play on, but this is what I hear all the time.
So businesses in the oil field business, are we good to stick here and do business in Alberta? Is this still the future, or is it moving? Do you see it moving?
Oh, I think Alberta businesses are going to thrive over the next, we've hit the bottom and now we're coming out of it. I don't think we're going to make any land speed records here for 2017, but I think going into 2018, 19, going forward like that, there's still a huge demand for oil and gas. The solar power is there, yes, but sorry, Rick, but I think we're a long ways away. But there's room for everybody. There really is.
Interesting. So you have your business currently in Spruce Grove. Why do you do business in Spruce Grove? What about this community do you find conducive to the business that you do?
Well, Lea-Der always started in Spruce Grove. We've been here since 1994. All 100% of our personnel, except for two, all reside in the county of Parkland or Parkland County. Ideally, we should be in Nisku. That's where our clientele are. But I've chosen to stay here where, our employees' families, everyone's from Spruce Grove.
So the community that you do, that you have staff from, operate out of Spruce Grove, and so it makes sense for you to stay closer to your staffing.
Exactly.
And so, obviously, Lea-Der Coatings has seen some success. You've done well over the last few years internationally and locally. Maybe take us through some of the times when it wasn't so great, and maybe some of the times where it was a little bit harder doing business than it is currently.
Just trying to think of the business as tough as it is. I think when we really started to go international, a lot of the different laws that come into play, setting up brokers and custom people, and aligning yourself with the right people that understand what we're doing. That was I guess a tough slug, a lot of work. The traveling became very tough. Thank goodness my wife is probably my biggest mentor. I don't know how she put up with me being gone that long. Going international, when we did, I literally even missed my mother-in-law's funeral because I was out of country. So there were a lot of sacrifices to where we're at now.
What impact does it have to have a supportive family? What part in a business do you think that plays to have your family support you in what you do?
I don't think I can put a number on that. It's just, it's 100% support.
So was your wife with you before Lea-Der and going forward, or?
Yeah, my wife was with me from the time I started with Lea-Der. She was actually worked for the City of Edmonton Police. She was in forensics, where she retired, and luckily at a young age. But yeah, she's been with me the whole way.
And was it always supportive of, look, this is what I'm going to do, or was it a little bit like, well, okay, but?
She often wondered why, you put yourself through all this stress and heartache for what we're doing. But I believed in the cause, what Lea-Der was doing. I had a vision of where I wanted Lea-Der to be and where to go. Now we're there, so it's just building the foundation still.
Was there ever a time when you didn't think you'd hit that? You had a vision in your mind, but was there ever a time when you thought, you know what, I don't know if it's worth it to go, or?
I've always built on the philosophy, don't let somebody tell you can't do that. So when they said that's not possible, you can't do that, I did it.
Yeah. And so did it make you want to go a little bit harder and push a little bit harder?
Oh, absolutely. It's like a jogger's high. You go further and further and further.
Yeah.
Have we reached the pivotal point in Lea-Der? Probably not. There's always different things that come in on a daily basis that create new opportunities.
So a lot of people, given in certain circumstances, will stop and then will reevaluate things. And when people say, you know what, this might not work, they'll go, okay, well, yeah, you're right, and they'll switch course. So where did you get it from? Where does it come from in you to have that attitude to push forward and keep going? Where do you get that from, you think?
Bacardi. I guess I'm probably my worst own critic. If there's 100% that you achieve, there's always 105% that you can get to, or 110.
That's good. So we're going to move into the rapid fire questions. Businesses would see more success if they did this more.
Well, I'd hate to speak for other businesses, but I guess being open-minded but cautious of people who ride your coattail, who want to follow you or get under your umbrella to gain knowledge. It has happened, and it will probably continue to happen, so we just have to guard against outside things. It's a dog-eat world out there.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Interesting. So, what's one book you might recommend that everyone should read?
Well, I got a couple of them. When I was in university, I took organizational behavior, and I did read a book. It was basically how to deal. I can't remember the name of it, but how to actually deal with people in your organization. So I think as business owners, employees sometimes can be the biggest thing to deal with. Different situations, different whatever. Another book that I really took interest in was a book called Blink, and it was about snap decisions on, I think a lot of us have been caught, or we've done it, where an opportunity comes and without thinking, on the outside it sounds really good, and you jump into it with both feet. So I've learned now that a lot of opportunities that come around, I think a little bit more into them and analyze them a lot more.
So it was Blank, and what?
Blink.
And what was Blink, and what was the name of the other one?
It was an organizational behavior, and I remember it was by Dr. Bastian Emsbriggen, but it always stuck with me on different ways to deal with people and handle different situations.
Interesting. What's the best advice you were ever given?
I think the best advice that I was given was a good friend of mine in Singapore who was Mandarin, and he said, you're going to deal with different cultures, and he said, in not so many words, don't trust them, but always be on guard. There's always going to be somebody looking, when you get to the point where a leader got to, there's always somebody wanting to knock you down or take what you've got. So he said that was, guard against that.
And so have you employed that strategy to always protect first before you...
Try to the best, yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's perfect. So thanks so much for coming out. We had an excellent conversation and learned a lot about what it takes to go overseas and to push hard and find those opportunities. So once again, thanks so much. And Daryl Demers.